Hello, and welcome to the Lund University International Podcast. On the show, you'll hear from current students, alumni, teachers, and many more special guests as we explore what it's really like to live and study in Lund. My name is Helga Heun, and I am a communications officer at the Lund University Alumni Relations Office and the Alumni Network. In the studio today, we have alumna Julia Schnittger, originally from Germany, working today as a Recruitment Delivery Manager at Global IKEA in Malmö. First, welcome to the podcast, Julia.
Yes, thanks a lot, and welcome everyone who's listening. Very happy to be here today and speak a little bit about my journey, but also what I'm doing today.
You studied a master's degree here in Lund in business administration, specializing in managing people, knowledge, and change. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you ended up coming to Lund?
How did I end up in Lund? For me, it was clear I wanted to do a master's degree, 1 year preferably, because I was already working in Germany. So I didn't want to go back to square one, basically, and study for 2-3 years. So that's the reason I was looking for 1 year master's degrees. And it was also clear for me to come to Sweden because I had the purpose on the long term to also stay in Sweden. And that's how I basically ended up in Lund, finding this master with focus on HR management, change management, and leadership, because that's what I would like to focus on.
Why did you want to come to Sweden specifically? Was it love?
No, it was not love. It's usually a good guess. And I can talk for hours now about this. But I was here a lot for vacation with my family. I really like the values in Sweden. I really like the way of living in Sweden as well. During my bachelor, I had the chance to live 4 months in the northern part of Sweden, in Sundsvall. So I know on the map it's mid of Sweden, but apparently everything above Stockholm is North Sweden, right? So I experienced the darkness for a while, and I lived there for 4 months to basically see if I could imagine living here on the long term as well. So I did this as a kind of a test and try, and then I decided that this is the country where I could see myself living in the future. And that's how I basically ended up in Sweden as well.
Wow, that's a pretty fascinating story, knowing that you're from Europe as well. What are the differences between Germany and Sweden that you loved about Sweden more than Germany?
Yeah, in Sweden, everything is a little bit more calm than in Germany. Sweden is a bigger country, but way less population than in Germany. So in Germany, everything is a lot hectic. It's already the cars on the street. Everyone is making noise, and it's a lot going on in Germany. And I feel always that there is a constant stress and I really like the way of living in Sweden to have it a bit more calm, very much more nature-ish as well, having it close to nature. And having a good work-life balance as well when we're thinking about working conditions as well. And that, of course, depends a little bit on where you're working in Germany and where you're working in Sweden. I assume here are also companies that are similar to the German way of working. But I really wanted to go to a company where I know that the work-life balance is a good topic, is an important topic, where I'm not just an employee, but where I'm also like a person. And that was very important to me. And in general, the differences as well is, I would say, next to the stress level, it's also about the way of living as such, because here in Sweden, it's a lot about togetherness and a kind of helping each other, supporting each other. And Germany is so big in some kind of ways that you're very anonymous. And I really like the Swedish way of dealing with things.
So the language barrier, was that ever something that came to mind before you chose to come and live here?
Not really, because I can share that during my studies in Sundsvall, I already did a course in Swedish. So I already got familiar with more the northern part of the language. But I definitely learned Swedish throughout my 4 months over there. And then I continued while I went back to Germany to finish my bachelor and started working. I still continued with courses at in Sweden, you would say Folkshögskolan. So like a kind of a private institution where you can go and do some language courses. And I did this continuously in Germany as well, because for me it was clear that I wanted to come back one day. So I learned Swedish along the way, basically. Yeah, but it was not a problem, and it was neither a problem to find a job, I would say.
Did you have a focus on going for a career at IKEA from the start?
Yes.
You
to be very honest, yes.
That was your aim and your goal.
Yes, my aim was when I left Germany and when I left my old employer, I said I will go studying in Sweden and I will find my job at IKEA. And then I will retire at IKEA one day and that's it. So that was basically, honestly, that was the first point when I thought about coming to Sweden. It was the goal to end up at IKEA. But I mean, it was a wish, right? Let's be honest. But that this wish came true then at one point.
Tell me about your journey, how you ended up in IKEA after you graduated.
Yes, I mean, I graduated 2020, so during COVID, which was, of course, a special year for everyone. And it was quite difficult, actually, to find a job. A lot of companies didn't really hire during that period of time. And I remember that I wrote a lot of application. I networked a lot throughout my studies as well, because I got to know that it's very important in Sweden, actually, to build up a network, to connect with people, if it's during the study program, if it's to teachers, if it's to people you know through other people that are working somewhere. So it was a lot connected to networking throughout my studies already. And I basically applied at IKEA for a role that was then recruited. But I also at the same time reached out to someone who studied exactly the same as I studied before. And this previous student at Lund University is now working at IKEA as well. And he wrote his master thesis with IKEA. So I met him actually through the alumni group on LinkedIn. So I reached out to him, I got in contact with him, and I asked him, okay, how did you end up at IKEA? I basically asked him the same question. And that's how we got in contact. And then I got to know a little bit more an understanding of what is the organization about, how is the organization built up. And I tried to connect to different people at IKEA. And one person I connected to, for example, was living in Sweden, coming from Germany, working at IKEA. So I reached out to this person on LinkedIn. I found through this previous student, and I connected with her and I asked her, okay, I'm from Germany and I'm super interested in working at IKEA. Can you tell me the differences between working in Germany at IKEA, working here in Sweden at IKEA, differences of working, of living as well? What is your experience? And this now colleague actually invited me for a fika. So we sit together at the office and she explained everything about how is IKEA built up, what are the different parts of the organization, what are potential roles I could be a fit for. So we went a little bit through the different levels as well. And that gave me a really clear sign on, okay, what can I apply for and what is maybe also too far from where I am today. So I got a better picture of that. And then I basically started to applying for roles. And I also asked her to use her as a reference and our fika as a reference for future applications. And I did that.
And just for reference, for listeners that might not know what a fika is, it's Swedes having coffee and sometimes cake, chatting together.
And apparently from a work perspective, a lot of decisions, important decisions are made at fikas. I mean,
that is actually science.
Exactly. Definitely. You should never decline a fika invitation because there are always important topics to be talked about. But yeah, that's how I basically ended up there.
And today you work as I said before, as a recruitment delivery manager at Global IKEA. So what does that actually mean? Like, what do you do from a day-to-day perspective?
Yeah. I mean, maybe to clarify, I was the first 3.5 years now at IKEA. I was working as a recruiter in the team. So I recruited for different parts of our global head office in Malmö. That's actually across the IKEA store. Don't know if everyone knows that, but it's maybe interesting for the listeners. And I was recruiting for different functions. And then during summer, I got the opportunity. I applied for the role as Recruitment Delivery Manager, which means that now I stepped up to lead the team I was a part of before. So now I'm leading the recruiters. They are recruiting for different group functions, means from a marketing perspective, law perspective, we have logistics, we have HR department. These are all departments we are recruiting for at the global head office in Malmö, but also in other locations like the Netherlands, for example, and also in India, where we also have a big hub by now. And in this role, basically, I'm mainly responsible for the team. So I have several recruiters under me at the moment to support them in their daily work, making sure that their work-life balance, one thing I value a lot in Sweden, is lived in a kind of, so that we have a good work-life balance in the team, making sure that people can develop, can grow also into possible next steps as well. And then at the same time, I'm working a little bit more strategically towards how are our ways of working? What can we improve in the future? Where do we go? Looking at KPIs as well, like basically, some key results we need to deliver on towards the business. So it is a little bit out of the operational work, a little bit more into this strategic work and getting a better understanding of the business perspective as well. And that's where I am at the moment.
What is the best thing about your job?
I think the best thing about the job and IKEA, I would put it together, is basically the people, to be honest. It's about all the 3,000 coworkers we have at the office. It's about coming together with people from different parts of the world. I have coworkers that are coming from India. I have coworkers that are coming from Portugal. We have coworkers coming from US, from China, from totally different perspectives. And I think the greatest thing is really to collaborate and understand that we all have different ways of working in a kind of. We all have different perspectives. And we're all coming together and bringing this together and listening to each other to then create something good out of that. And I think that's the best what can happen. And that's what I value also the most when it comes to IKEA as an employer, because we're so open to everyone who's applying. We're looking so much into the diversity topic, which is a very big topic for us as a company. And I think that's what I value the most.
What does that mean in actual terms of real life, that you look into diversity? Like, do you employ by a quote or?
I mean, yeah, we have specific goals at IKEA. We're focusing on, for example, gender balance as well, to have gender balance in the departments. We also look at recruiting people with different backgrounds, actually, seeing that we actually value that they're coming people from different parts of the world, because as I said, they bring different perspectives as well. They bring different experiences. And for a global company like IKEA, where we are in so many different markets, it's important for us that we also have coworkers out of these markets to make sure that we understand what's going on, for example, in India as a country, to understand how are they working, what do they need from us, how can we bring the Swedish fika culture also to a country like India to make sure that they are understanding what it means to work for IKEA and what does IKEA stand for, basically. And yeah, it is due to quotes, for example, how we manage that. And of course, we in recruitment have a responsibility there as well to deliver on that.
And if a person came from abroad now to study here at Lund University and they wanted to have the same goal as you did, to work for IKEA, what is your advice for them? Except looking at LinkedIn to see if there's anyone working there that they can connect with, is there anything else they should be thinking about for their upcoming career?
I think the most important part is that you really get familiar with a company and their values. IKEA is built out of values, basically. The values are super important, and the heritage of where we're actually coming from. And we have a lot of this typical small Lund values as well in our culture, which is super important for us. And I think if you want to work at IKEA, it's super important to get familiar with these values, to understand where's IKEA coming from, what does it mean, what are they looking for as well when it comes to different parts like togetherness and also caring for people and planet, making sure that we have a responsibility as a company as well. You can read a lot about the IKEA Foundation, about what we're doing outside of the blue box where everyone only sees the furniture, but there's so much more behind it as well, where we do a lot for people as well. And I think one big recommendation would actually to really look into behind the four letters, behind the furniture as such, also understand, the values, the culture of the company. What is the company doing next or besides the furniture part as such? And then trying to connect this with your own personal values. Is this something that resonates to you? Because that was for me the case. Like I went through the website, I went through the Fika, for example, and I got to understand what is important for the company. And I felt like this is exactly what I want to work for, because it resonates a lot to how I live and what's important to me as a person. And I think that is something we are also evaluating a lot during the interview processes and during the applications as well, because we are not only recruiting based on the experience and the competence a person is bringing, but we focus a lot on like, how does the person fit into our company and our culture? Because that's the ground for the success of IKEA as well. And if we start to recruit wrong personalities that are not fitting into this, we're also risking that the whole culture gets damaged. So that's why it's super important to focus on this also during the interview process. And I think one part first is, of course, to look into how does it resonate to you as a person, and then also trying to find, especially in the application, some examples. How can you bring up examples that are resonating to our culture and values? And it can be from previous experience, but it can also be from a personality perspective. For example, when I applied, I used my previous soccer experience playing in a soccer team for 25 years as my highlight to underline that I'm a team player. So it doesn't always need to be connected to a professional experience. It can also be connected to a private experience, personality, how you grew up.
More soft values, so to speak.
Yeah.
And if we would take the alumni, maybe a person who's more already set in their career and they're thinking about maybe changing jobs, what are some perks at IKEA working there that you could attract some people that are already halfway through their career? And
yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest perk or the biggest thing I would mention working at IKEA is the best is the culture and the values. It is about the people. I think that's what we're all agreeing on also at the office. Really coming there, be themselves, and working for a company where we are not as hierarchical as maybe other companies, where we're very down to earth, where we're making decisions. Even on a big scale, decisions are made by including people, listening to people as well, and really having a kind of voice and something to say. Comes also with the other side that sometimes decisions might take a bit longer because we're asking 2-3 times to make sure that everyone can speak up and everyone is listened to. But in general, I would say that's the best of working at a company like IKEA. And then next to that, of course, from my perspective, it's also about what are we doing next to the furniture, as I mentioned. A lot of people resonate with IKEA, the furniture, the billy shelves, and all of this. But there is so much more behind it from a financial perspective, from a cultural perspective, and also from the foundation perspective, where we actually do a lot working with organizations to support people in countries that are not having the same conditions as we have. And I think that's something that is definitely one of the reasons to work for IKEA. Yeah.
A lot of companies nowadays go back to working full-time in the office, whereas during the pandemic, a lot of people started to do hybrid. What is IKEA like?
I mean, during the pandemic, we also worked 100% hybrid, of course. I mean, there was only for specific reasons you could have come to the office. Otherwise, you work from home. Since I would say, a year, 1.5 years, we have in a kind of the approach that we need to be, or we should be at the office the majority of the time during a week, which means 2 to 3 days. And the reason for this is that IKEA is built on the togetherness part. So as I said, we have a lot of dialogues. We have a lot of fikas. We have a lot of discussions. We love to meet. We love to collaborate. And that's also how our office is set up. There are like couch areas, as you can see them at the IKEA store, where you feel like you're sitting in one of these blue boxes. And you sit together and you collaborate and you talk about topics. A lot of questions are actually answered by running into someone at the coffee machine and getting an answer to a quick question you had instead of reaching out on Teams. And this is all something where we see it's beneficial to come together, to come physically also together at the office, be present, getting also the IKEA culture again a little bit, this IKEA spirit, because working from home means the togetherness part is a little bit missing. It's not the same when we are always connecting via Teams than if we would come together at the coffee machine or at the couch area and just sit together and have lunch. So that's the approach, basically, to be the majority of the time during the week at the office.
So you personally work at the Malmö IKEA office in Julia. However, as I understand it, there's not just different offices around the world and offices here in Sweden, but different companies. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think actually that's one important part to consider as well, because IKEA is the big brand. IKEA is the 4 letters, yellow on the blue box, where everyone resonates the usual furniture with. And that's the brand where everything is happening. And then IKEA has a lot of different companies actually under the IKEA umbrella as a brand. And I'm working personally for the Inca organization that's based in Malmö, Julia. As you mentioned, it's the office on the opposite of the store. And we have also offices, for example, in the service office in Helsingborg, where the service office is mainly responsible for the Swedish market, whereas I am working in the global office in Malmö. We also have a global office in Amsterdam and Leiden in the Netherlands. And then we have within IKEA, another IKEA organization that's owning the whole concept of IKEA, because IKEA is basically a franchise system. And IKEA is based in Älmhult, and they are responsible for everything that's connected to the marketing of the products, everything that's connected to product development as such. So everything you will see in 2-3 years in the store is currently produced in Älmhult to make the first tests and tries. That's where the magic is happening, so to speak. And then we have, as I said, at IKEA, we are supporting all the different countries with basically providing the concepts to the countries and making sure that every store looks the same. Either you go in Netherlands to a store, you go in Germany to a store, or you go in Sweden to a store. And even in India, it looks the same. So that's basically where Inca is coming in. Yeah.
So during your master's degree, when you came to study here, you also moved to Lund?
Yes.
You live here? Did you live in halls of residence, or where did you live?
I actually lived in a private house where I found one room, 12 square meters, and I had 13 flatmates. So we had a big house.
13?
13, yes. So we were 14 in total, 14 rooms, one big living room, one big terrace, and then I think we had 4 bathrooms and 2 kitchens.
Wow, it sounds like a palace.
Yes, it was. I mean, a bit hesitant in the beginning, I have to say, coming from living completely alone to moving into a house with 13 other people, and everyone was studying something different. International students, bachelor students, master students, people from Sweden, people from across other countries. So it was a kind of a big family, I can say. Yeah.
So what was one of your best memories from Lund during your studies here?
I think in general it was this housing, to be honest, because we did a lot together. We had Indian dinners at our house where they came from India. They cooked for the whole house, basically. We built up a Christmas tree every year for Christmas to basically celebrate a little bit together. I think that was a super important part for me, to feel in a kind of, arriving at an accommodation where it's a kind of a family feeling as well. And then I think the other best part of studying in Lund was basically this international context you're coming in. I mean, I came here with the purpose of staying. So I really tried to connect as much as I could to the Swedish people as well in our program. It took me quite a while, I can say so. But nowadays I have a lot of friends. They are also living in Sweden. They even stayed in Sweden, some of them, and others are Swedes. So they grew up here. And I would say the best part was really to connect with all of these different peoples and making friends for life, basically.
Well, Julia, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming. And you're absolutely one of our best alumni network members because you give back so much to the university. You come to panels and you share your experience. And today you came on the podcast. So we're so happy to have you and hope everyone else joins the network as well after listening to you.
Yes, thanks as well. Thank you for the invitation. I think it's always great and a pleasure to share experience because I have been there myself around 5 years ago when I came to Lund and I didn't know how to find a job, how to find the next step. So I think every little small tip and trick I can give can be helpful for some people. So I hope that everyone enjoyed listening to it and happy to come back.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Lund University International Podcast. If you're interested in learning more about Lund University, you can go to our website, lunduniversity.lu.se. And if you're already a student or an alumni and want to know more about the Alumni Network, please visit the Alumni tab on the website. You can also follow us on social media on Instagram, Facebook, and X, and you can chat with current students on Unibuddy. Don't forget to subscribe, and we look forward to bringing you a new episode very soon.